100% of you gets a little wild. All right, so hi, I'm Elise. I know that the team has grown since we haven't been together, and the team has already grown so much even before we went home that there are probably a lot of you who don't know me. So I'm Elise. I am in marketing. I love running, although I just got like a minor toe injury, which is really fun when all you want to do is like work out or play with babies. Um, I like art. I like dancing, um, laughing at inappropriate times. I like fun in general. And this is a picture of me having fun, super drunk and happy in Paris before I had kids. Um, totally carefree, got nothing, just drinking in Paris. A few years ago, almost 3 years ago, I was the first time mom at Detroit Labs. Janae Driard took the first mom at Detroit Labs with sweet little baby boy. Is it Harry or Henry? I think it's Harry. Harry's nickname? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I was the first time mom, and it was actually really helpful to have someone like Janae here because I was able to set a meeting up with her to like talk about breast pumps because there wasn't anyone else around at Labs that I could really talk about breast pumps with. So it was nice to have someone like that. But so a few years ago, I was the first time mom. There were a few times that Sarah and Erica, who sat by me at the time, had to help me put on my shoes because I couldn't reach my feet and everything was too bloated. So being pregnant in the office was just like a really interesting experience. Sarah, just soak in the time that you're at home when you don't have to put on shoes. It's great. It's so great.
Oh, I am for sure.
Yeah. And not having to like walk around to conference rooms. At 34 weeks, I had these cotton candy dream boats via C-section. This is Claudia. She was in the NICU for 14 days, and that's what she looked like on day 2. And now she is big and strong and healthy, and here she is telling me she doesn't want more peanut butter crackers, but also like really enjoying peanut butter crackers. And she's big and strong and healthy and gorgeous and hilarious. And this is Tomas. He was in the NICU for 10 days. That little thing taped to his face is called a gavage. It's something that when babies are learning to eat, if they're a little small and need to get some of those skills, you kind of attach like a little feeding tube and it helps them, and that's how they take in milk and formula in the first few days. And now he's big and strong and healthy and crazy, and this morning I told him that him being mad is a choice and that I don't feel bad for him. And so we've come a long way. And I've come out the other side. And I can honestly say, like, even though the world is insane right now, like, and I was actually like Googling yesterday, like, is there a worse year than 2020? It turns out there was, but like the rationale was sort of like ho-hum and like business related. So I was like, you don't know my feelings. But anyway, so the world is on its head, but I can honestly say I'm in a better place than I was a few years ago, which is good, because I need to be able to talk about this, and to be able to talk about this, I need to be able to come through it, and to be able to come through it, I need to know that other people also suffer from postpartum depression, so I know that I'm not alone. Because when no one talks about it, especially with things around mental health, especially maternal mental health, because there's so many different types of stigma, it makes it all worse. It makes it, and I'm not alone. And feeling alone when you're in this space is not great. It is said that 1 in 9 mothers in the US suffer from postpartum depression. It is also thought that this is wildly underreported for various reasons, like stigma being the first one. There's a lot of mom shame in general, but just thinking like you want to be the perfect mom and be the perfect mom. Like you're happy that your kids are there. Like you can handle it. You can handle everything being thrown at you. So stigma is a big one. Another one is just probably just pure education, like an understanding of mental health or your own health enough to advocate for yourself or to ask questions. It might be a lack of access to the kind of care that would ask these questions for you. There are a lot of different reasons as to why this is underreported, but yeah, I'm not alone. And it's also important to talk about because the number 2 leading cause of death of women with postpartum depression. And there are a lot of different ways that after you have a child that things go awry that are like purely physical health related. Was it Serena Williams had a pretty scary run-in after her birth, and she had to advocate for herself to like pretty much a horribly maddening degree. But other than that, when you're in the hospital, suicide is the second leading cause of death with people with postpartum depression. That sucks. Because postpartum depression doesn't just affect the mother. Like, it didn't just affect me, it affects, luckily they were really young when this happened, but it affects the children, it affects my partner, Matt, who I asked him if he wanted to sit in on this talk, and he's like, babe, I was there the whole time. So he's like, no, he's like not trying to like make you mad, but like I've seen it there firsthand. So like, fathers, this affects you. It affects coworkers. Like, I'm on a really small team. I'm sure more often than not, and in ways that I understood or didn't understand, it's affected them. And it also affects close relationships, like friendships or just people that you're really close to. So really, we should all care. Let me take a drink of water real quick because my mouth's really dry. We're gonna like quickly glance over some science stuff, and then we can go into like my story and then how you can help, or like ways in which you can help. So looking at like the like definition of postpartum depression, it looks a lot like general anxiety disorder. There are a lot of ways in which postpartum depression manifests that look exactly the same. And so a lot of the ways in which postpartum depression is treated are very similar. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong, and I'm not saying that's necessarily right, but this would be okay if postpartum depression and general anxiety disorder triggered the same areas of the brain. So I think the pink brain is the mom, and the green and the different shades of green brain is someone with general anxiety. They fire up different areas of the brain. And something that I ran into like time and time again when I was looking at different like medical articles and looking at forums, and even in a podcast that I happened upon where Reese Witherspoon was talking to her own doctor, like Reese Witherspoon, who has every access to everything and any money she could ever want. There's not enough research to know if the way that we care for postpartum mothers is the best way. And if Reese Witherspoon can't get that answer, like then like how are any of us going to survive? So here's my story, and how my journey happened. And one thing that's really important to note, kind of what I just mentioned about Reese Witherspoon, is that other than me not being like a waspy white woman, who I think she's fabulous, I love her anyway, I have all of the support structures in place. Like Labs supports women and mothers. I have employment. I have a savings account. I have really good access to healthcare. Like all of these things. I was 30 when I had children. I chose to be a mother. Like all of these different support systems that I'm fine. Hold on. That most mothers don't have. It's almost like unbelievable that other people can make it through this. If I had trouble, and I have almost pretty much everything. So it's really important to note that my story, when you're hearing my story, is that I come from a place of extreme privilege. And if it was bad for me, it's really bad for others. Let me take a drink of water. I'm fine. I'm gonna relax my forehead as Erica's instructed me on Slack. Okay. So, and I mean, I think everyone's different. I wanted to be a mom. I wasn't always like, oh my God, I'm going to be a mother one day. Like, this is my ultimate role. Like, I just was never that girl. And it's fine if that's who you are, but this is just like not who I was. So like, I went through like a period of like a freak out, and then like realizing that I was going to be a mom. And then I came into like the Zen stage, where I was like, this is going to be fine. I don't know what I'm going to do, and but it's going to be fine. Because like no one else knows what they're doing, and they're fine. And then when I went to my first appointment they said, okay, well, it's twins. And I said, oh, do you have any juice? Do you have any juice? I think I'm gonna pass out. And so like everything that I had sort of like done to brace myself for what was about to happen, like flew out the door. No, there are like equipment is more expensive for twins. The pregnancy and the considerations are different. Pregnancy is hard in general, but like the considerations are immediately different. You become high risk whether or not you're like healthy or not. A lot of the mom blogs like don't even talk about twins, and like there's just there's differences. Like it's all hard, right? I'm not saying that one thing's harder than another, but it's just different. And like not having some of that just like regular support system, just even from like Google searches, like that made some things hard. But I got through it. Like it was fun. I was giant. I ate pizza all the time. It was pregnancy, and it was pregnancy. Those who have been pregnant and Sarah, you know this right now. It was just it's fine. Everything's fine, and you're gonna eat and you're gonna sleep. So at 33 weeks, and this is my stomach. I made a GIF of it, of a video I had. At 33 weeks, I was admitted to the hospital with gestational hypertension. Those leads on my stomach, usually there's only like going to be 2, but I had 3 because of the twins. One's like taking, I think, your vitals, and then another one is also taking the baby's vitals. So when I went in, and this is a pretty regular test near the end of your pregnancy, my blood pressure was like sky high, and they were like, don't worry about it. Maybe it's because you walked in and it was like kind of a far walk. Like, let's take it in 40 minutes after your NST. And it was higher. And so I remember going into the room, and Erica knows this doctor. She's like, no nonsense. Like, oh God, right now I can't remember her name, but I was like, so should I email my boss? And at the time it was like, I was going to email Nathan and Billy telling them I was going to be out until Monday. And it was like a Thursday. I was like, should I just like email my boss that I'm going to be out? And she was like, oh, honey, you're not leaving until these babies are there. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, this is really happening. And this is really, really happening. But, you know, being in the hospital bed rest, like they bring you food 6 times a day, and it's just sort of, you're sleepy anyway. So after 10 days, the twins were born via C-section. And they went to the NICU like right after. Like I did get to see them, so that was nice. That doesn't always happen, especially if it's like a complex high risk. But I did get to see them for a second before they went to the NICU. And here we are in the NICU. It's our first family photo. Yeah, Claudia's up there. Tomas is down here. And in all honesty, like the babies were fine. Like the health issues, the high risk was more for me. It was my gestational hypertension, but babies were fine. They were just early, so they needed to like cook longer. Like they needed more lung maturity. They needed to like be able to regulate their temperature, stuff like that. And that just takes time. So like I know other parents at labs have had babies in the NICU and like had different scary situations, but like when it comes down to it, it was just that they needed more time. And the thing that was really hard about the NICU is that as you're doing these large hormonal swings after giving birth, your body is just sort of going pretty wild. And for those first few days, and your first few days as a mom, you know, you think as a parent, like, okay, I'm going to be in my hospital room and like the baby will be next to me and my husband, whatever, like I'll be sleepless, but like the way you picture it is like everyone's there, or like, you know, like you and your partner and maybe like they're there. I didn't get that. And instead what I got was a lot of really scary heart monitors and breathing. And it was just, to put it bluntly, it was pretty much hell. And you know, they kind of tell you before you give birth, especially if you're high risk, like some of these things that might happen, but like you don't really understand it. Because it doesn't, like everything's happening at once. So you don't have any like perspective of like, oh, this is what they mean. Like, of course. But I didn't realize that like on top of moms of multiples have a higher risk of postpartum depression. If you have high risk and traumatic birth stories, you have a higher risk of having postpartum depression. And then to kick that, if you have an infant or infants, whatever. I have too many. I was a bus. In the NICU, your likelihood is like basically you're going to have it, like some form of it. And a lot of these things were things that I knew in theory, like in concept what these things are, but you don't really understand like how do I ask questions about it? Like how do I get treated? So yeah, the NICU pretty much sealed my fate if I wasn't already there. But after 2 weeks, we finally got to go home. And all of the bodily fluids everywhere, sleepless, I don't know what I'm doing, Googling, calling the doctor, like all of that first-time parenting stuff that every new parent goes through, like all of that came. And I think even though that point in time is really hard, and like any parent will tell you that it's really hard, I think that there are still a lot of areas of joy that you'll find. There'll be like glimmers of joy in between. And I might have had a few glimmers of joy and hope, but I remember one day I was standing I was standing in my kitchen and I was telling my dad that I'm not having this isn't what I thought. And I'm not liking it. And that's a really strange thing to admit to yourself and also your dad. So I was in a really dark place. Sweet Rose Dawson says it best. You feel like you have I have all the support systems, right? I have people who love me. I have a lot of friends, or people who would like to help me, even if I don't know them that well. Like I think all of us really do when it comes down to it. I think we've seen that in response to like how everyone's working together with COVID, but it sort of just feels like either you don't know how to express the problem, so you feel like no one's helping you, or you're pushing people away, so you feel like no one's helping you and you just sort of feel stuck and like nothing is right. I would back to like the pushing people away. I would just like go full speed in one direction and then just absolutely throw it back in the other direction. And it's just like whiplash. And some of that is hormones, yes, but like around my first Mother's Day, and this is when the twins were born in October and Mother's Day is in May, so the twins were like, what, 6, almost 7 months old. I was sobbing the whole day. That was my first Mother's Day. And I didn't want to admit that I had it, because I'm a strong person, right? I can handle a lot. I can handle a lot of different kinds of changes. I can handle tough conversations. I can handle a lot of things, and I can balance it, and it's fine, right? It's always fine. But the thing that's hard is that even when you're in a good place, that's not always fine. And if you're in a really bad place, you feel like you can't admit it, because you feel like you should be stronger. But I did go see a few specialized therapists, and I got medicated. And slowly over time, everything starts to brighten up. And you take care of yourself and you have more patience and you start to have fun with your kids, and you start being yourself. And I survived, but not everyone does. A lot of people go undiagnosed or untreated. And while we're not doctors and we're not researchers or medical researchers, there are ways in which you can help. And some of this goes back to even like our mental health training that we've done to trait labs periodically is, so the first one, I know it's at the bottom of the list actually, but if you sense that there's actually an emergency and you're with someone and you're in that space, it is okay to figure out how to get help. And if you're in a space where you feel like this person may be actually at risk of harming themselves, it is okay to call 911 in case of an emergency. It is also okay if you see someone heading down that route and you know them well enough and there is trust to provide resources to them or to provide resources to their support structures. It's also important, and the parenting room is really great at this, to be a non-judgmental ear. A lot of things happen and a lot of things that you before you have kids, you think, I would never say that. I would never do that. You will do all of those things. And then look back and be like, oh, that is why that happened. And another thing that's hard right now is helping mothers of new babies prioritize themselves, just because we can't physically be there, but there'll be a point in time where we can make that happen. And then just lending help for families with young babies. Sometimes it's an extra hand. Sometimes it's just like, I'm going to set up a meal train for you. Like, just so they don't have to worry. They just have to worry about one less thing. Here's some resources that I found. Some of them I looked at myself, and then in thinking about how everyone has different experiences with the healthcare system. There are also specific resources for Latina moms and Black moms that will help you, if not get the help you need, maybe help point you in a direction, or help you find a question that you could figure out how to ask to maybe help yourself get help. Yeah, so that's my talk. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much.